Now, the dolls I've shown you up until now were not made in any sense as a play doll. And even though the ones I'm going to show you really weren't play dolls either in our sense of a play doll, they definitely were made as a fashion doll, as a doll that eventually might be in the hand, might have been made on special commission for a child, albeit a very privileged child. But we enter into a different type of doll field. We know more the country of origin of these dolls, whereas the first dolls I showed you we tend to just simply call them continental. They could have been southern Germany, they could have been in the Tyrolean section, northern Italy, they could have been English, they could have been French. We don't know because, again, we need so much more research on those early dolls. But now we come to a category where we do know, and I want to show you an extraordinary doll, probably one of the keynote dolls from Estelle's collection. And when you first look at the doll, you might not notice everything about it that's really important. So I want to show you these two additional photographs we have of the doll in various state of undress. And so you can't see everything extraordinary about this doll because she is here fully dressed, but here's some of the things you need to know about her. Her extraordinary undergarments. She has what is holding the skirt of her dress out. She has these beautifully constructed panniers. She has the laced corset. She has all of these wonderful details. Things you might not really even see at all are the beautiful shaping of her legs. Again, they're not just sticks like some of them were done later on, but they actually had good sculpting and carving to them. And she has pockets. She has the hidden pockets to hold her little coins or whatever treasures she wants. And what's remarkable about her, because it helps us give a provenance to this doll, the pockets are actually embroidered with the date 1739. A wonderful, wonderful clue to the origin of this doll and the date of this doll. And what I love are those little pockets also. In one of them we found tucked, and you can see it in the photograph, that little carved bone plaque with alphabet letters on it. Just an extraordinary treasure. Now on the doll dressed, you're going to find wonderful features I want you to notice. Look at, she has the original gloves, fingerless gloves on her hands, which are really extraordinary. And the costume itself is totally original. We're going to turn it around so you can really kind of see it from all angles, because so many of you have told me that one of the things you love about the videos is being able to see the dolls in very dimensional forms. She has a wonderful carving of her torso with a very defined bosom. Again, a throat, a very beautiful high throat. Her face is held regally. When she comes around, at the back of it, you can see the beautiful embroidery on her cap. You can see the flow of her gown in the back, very, very of its time. And when she comes back around, just notice the very beautiful, refined profile shape of her head, her beautiful enamel eyes and fine painting. Very extraordinary doll. And this would be leaping ahead perhaps half a century, but Estelle liked not only the dolls of grandeur and earliest age, but she liked wonderful little found treasures. And here in this little box, when we unpacked the collection, we had this little wooden box, and I thought, well, what is in here? And I opened it to find this, I've never seen one this small, this wonderful early English wooden doll with her original costume, original painting. She's absolutely fabulous. Even these, look at these little fingers. They're just wonderful, little kid fingers. And then she has, unlike her friends' beautifully shapely legs, she has just those very simple carved, very simplistic carving of the legs, but she has little red woolen socks wrapped around her feet. So a really stunning little doll, and kind of treasure that just really doesn't show up. Imagine how easy it would be to have this lost over the years. Meanwhile, in France, a doll industry was developing also. And in France, a lot of the early dolls, the two dolls I'm showing you here, would date from the early 1800s. And they're very, very interesting. We have one made of carved wood, the smaller one, and it's interesting. because there's a story that went with it that Estelle had kept over the years. This is an example of provenance that, well, from my point of view, somebody needs to prove it. But at any rate, the legend surrounding this doll was that she was a portrait of Georges Sand, the French writer. So you can take that, and whoever owned this doll might want to run with it and see if they can find something to authenticate it. Very, very interesting. I'm going to pull the cap back when I turn her so she can see the rolled curls around the side of her face. This is her, she has her original wig. It's a little sparse, but it is the original wig. And when it comes around, I want you to notice this bonnet, which is just incredible, and is a match to the ruffled high collar she's wearing. One of the ways we can date this doll and the following one are their costumes. They're highly stylized costumes. This one in particular having the very, very high waist. I think you could not call this doll beautiful by our standards of the world beautiful today, but wow, she has character. I mean, just looking at her, I almost need to separate her from the others and let her stand by herself and really sweep down and look at her, and you'll see how wonderful she is. Even look at her shoes. They're just great. This collection, by the way, has several groups of early shoes, 18th century shoes, including some that were actual women's sizes. Incredible. And then one group that has 4 pairs of early ladies' doll shoes of this type, and they're grand to find. Estelle was very, very committed to collecting the accessories that these dolls wore. And again, I've talked about this in past videos, but I want to emphasize it again. This was a big industry in France, in Germany, and in England of making accessories that would accompany your doll's outfit. Now, when I say big industry, certainly not by our 20th century standards, but certainly an industry, a cottage industry. But it was, one person phrased it in one time and always stuck with me, was whatever was made for real people was also made in doll size and doll scale. And the finding of these pieces is so great. Estelle has hundreds of them in this collection that could take 5 videos in itself to show. Another doll from France, and this one, I'm going to have another one to show you in a minute. This one is made of what's called carton moulé. And it's a form of paper mache, but a very, very distinctive form, very lightweight, and earlier than our classic commercial paper mache of later in the century made by German doll makers. But this very regal woman has so many extraordinary things about her. Talking about accessories, look at this fabulous chatelaine she's carrying with that early scissors, which has the attached thimble on it. All of these wonderful accessories. The apron is a very, very fine homespun and has beautiful early feathered embroidery on it, which extends up into the apron that she's wearing. She has her original coif, she has her original jewelry, and let me turn her around so you can see her all the way around. This was one of Estelle's very, very prized possessions, and in 2000, John Darcy Noble wrote a book that he called Rare and Lovely Dolls, and he featured this doll in the book, and he said that she had a look of prosperity, a great character, and also evidenced prosperity of the time because of the costume that she was wearing, but also because of her double chin, which I thought was a little insulting, but there it is. I'm just teasing. At any rate, she does have wonderful jewelry, and she has a great look, enamel eyes, a fabulous doll, and let's just look at her shoes, because the shoes and socks are just amazing. Let me try to pull her gown up here a bit so you can see them. If you like early shoes and socks like this, in miniature form, there they are. This doll also has a few clues because some of her undergarments have the embroidery of the initials of perhaps the original owner of the doll or whatever name the doll was given at the time. I used to do a video, not video, an email before each auction, and I would list my 10 favorite dolls in each auction. And then it just got too hard to do because I loved so many of them. But if I was doing that email today, I would probably have this doll right up toward the rank of my very favorite doll in the auction. I think she is so extraordinary. She, again, is from that French period of the cartoon Moulet doll, made about 1820. Very, very identifiable because of the high-waisted style of her costume. Now, it's not just the costume, but if you saw the body of the doll, you would see that the whole body is designed to wear these high-waisted costumes, with the actual waistline being right about here on the doll, and then a shapely bosom. She has wonderful enamel eyes, and look at her expression. This has I don't know, large eyes and this kind of a sassy little half smile. And she has, I'm going to turn her around so you can see her. You need to see all profile views of her. Look at her wonderful curls coming around the sides of her head. And then catch the profile of her face. It's wonderful. And when we turn her around, you can see the back of her gown, which is very, very special. And look at the detail of her high ruffled collar and her cap. Very, very particular of the period. This is what Estelle loved about these dolls, were the costumes. But as that TV ad goes, wait, there's more. Because she came with her trousseau, and how extraordinary to find a doll from this time period with these wonderful early clothes. A few of them which are very, very delicate because of the fabric. We have the black woolen coat with the soutache embroidery on it, the high stand-up collar, and cuffs of kid leather. Very, very wonderful early riding coat. The gown next to it, and if you see, these are not falling off. These are sleevelets that were designed to be worn tucked under the puffed sleeve of the high-waisted dress, or you could wear the dress without it, but any real lady would never let her arms be shown in public, so she would wear these matching sleevelets. It was a great fashion design too, because your sleeves were what would be most apt to get soiled if you were out for the evening. And so now you didn't have to clean the whole gown. The sleeves were detachable and they could be washed and be ready to go for the next time. So this wonderful early costume, this beautiful sheer early fabric, has this silk applique bands all around it. Very, very special. I'll turn it around so you can see the back of it as well. And turn that coat around, which I hadn't done before, but I think you might want to see the detail of how that is in the back. And then the third gown that we're going to show you from her is like a day dress that she would have been wearing at home during the day, and again has the puffed sleeves and has the detachable sleevelets matching with the same matching trim. Very, very thick bands of cording. 1, 2, 3, 6 bands of cording around the hem and 3 around each of the sleevelets. Very simple dresses, but so beautifully made. And then the doll was lucky enough to still have a trunk. I'm not going to show you all of these because they're simple. They were her undergarments, everything from shifts to, this is a long day gown, undergarments, night shifts, petticoats, a whole box of undergarments that originally came with this doll as well. So an absolute treasure. I hope it goes to a home that will really love it. She's a wonderful doll. Look at that face. And for those of you who seek a more petite doll, we have 2 other dolls from that same time period from the early 1800s. The girl wearing this wonderful white gown, her original gown, by the way, is really extraordinary. We've cataloged it as French because of the style of the body and the style of the face, but you could make a case arguing it as being German-made as well, too. But let me turn it around. There's a blue ribbon that Estelle won for this doll at one time, and you can see the detail, her very, very refined cut of her forehead, very, very high hair, elongated throat. Her head is held quite demurely as opposed to some of the others we've seen where the head was really up tilted. About 1820, And again, having a very distinctively made body that is designed for wearing these high-waisted gowns. Very beautiful. I'm going to just, if I tip her up like this, then I can think you can see her face perhaps, and the wonderful ringlet curls. Notice the gold band, the gold decorative comb around the crown of her head, and very delicate blush, quite beautiful. Now her friend, who is definitely French, and we've left her, this girl in the white gown is wooden, this one is paper mache. So two different materials that were being used at the time. And this one, when I turn it around, the camera's going to show you, the detailing of her entire shoulder plate, which is really extraordinary. Molded bosom in the front, with defined like cleft of her throat. And then when you turn it around the back, look at the muscles in her shoulders. I mean, it's really very wonderfully defined. And again, a very high throat, very tall, elongated throat, very distinctive shaping of the forehead, where again you have that aristocratic type of look that is so dramatic. The sculpted hair with, this is great, look at the top of her head. Tiny, tiny little cluster of curls, like almost like a cluster of grapes, grape-shaped curls at the top of her head. And then at the front, having the decorative comb, the red and white decorative comb, and then this little fall of curls over in front of each ear. Very, very delicate little ringlet curls. She's a very special doll. Hand-stitched body, the kid body is all hand-stitched. When I turn it around, look at the back, for example. There's no gusset jointing here like you find on later paper maches. I think I'll take her stand off so then you could probably see her body a little better. So later on the so-called dolls that we call milliner models with their kid body, you're going to have gusset jointed on the, at the knees and at the hips. And on this doll, you don't. It's all one long, slender body. And if you look very, very closely at the stitching, you can see it's entirely hand-stitched. She has the red bands here, here, and then she has them at her ankles and carved wooden feet. Very, very different. Just like the hands are carved wooden and the feet are. This stops the ankles, almost like the legs are a little pantalette or a capri pant, and then you have the feet coming out from it with the painted shoes. Wonderful doll.